everyone. Thanks so much for joining me today. This is Des from the Wellness Project. I'm so excited to be bringing you another chiropractor interview today. How cool! So, last week I interviewed Dr. Mack, and today I am interviewing Dr. Lauren Penn. She is the owner of Pinpoint Chiropractic and Wellness in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I'm so excited to hear from her today because I know we just spoke with Dr. Mack, but I wanted to hear from another chiropractor because I really enjoyed what Dr. Mack was saying about how there's different flavors and different types of chiropractors. And I thought it'd be really interesting to get another chiropractor's perspective. So I'm really excited to talk to Dr. Lauren Penn. So let's get started and talk with her about her chiropractic experience. Hey everyone, I'm so excited. I'm here with Dr. Lauren Penn. She's a chiropractor and owner of Pinpoint Chiropractic and Wellness. Hi, Dr. Lauren. How are you today?
I'm doing well, and yourself?
I'm great. I'm really excited to talk to you.
Me too. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm excited to talk to you today, especially because I just interviewed another chiropractor. So I'm really excited to hear your different perspective because she was saying there's all different kind of flavors and types of chiropractors. So I'm excited to hear about your center. So can we start off with you just telling me and my audience what exactly is a chiropractor?
A chiropractor is a doctor of chiropractic. We learn how to heal people by hand. So the Greek word chiropractor means healing by hand.
Oh, great. I didn't know that.
Yeah. We learn how the nervous system functions. In chiropractic school, you learn all about the different nerves and how their attachments are from the spine and then how they go out to the body. We learn how through adjusting the spine that the body begins to heal itself. There's a philosophy with chiropractic. My perspective is a little bit different. I absolutely agree with all of that, but because I spent so many years being a surgical technologist, body alignment becomes very important and mobility becomes very important to me. The object is to get the patient back to condition that they're able to do things that they weren't able to do before. So many people are like, well, God, well, I go to my chiropractor because they just cracked my back, or I go to my chiropractor because I was in a car accident. That perpetual thinking doesn't get people to understand that it actually helps you with your hormones, it helps you with movement, it helps you. It's a very broad spectrum and things that we have to test for in order to become doctors of chiropractic.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that chiropractics could help with hormones.
Oh, absolutely.
How does that work?
Whenever you have a spinal segment that is out of place, or the electrical current, which is how the neural system works, is being inhibited either by swelling or by pain or by a malposition of the original position that it should be in, it blocks signaling. So the body works by signaling. And when the body is not able to send the correct signals, that say, hey, I need you to release this hormone. I need you to release these fluids. I need you to release this synapse. Then the body becomes inhibited. We'll take a dancer, for example. A dancer, she does ballet and she's a left side twirler. So she just twirls left side, left side, left side, left side. She gets a type of acquired scoliosis, but through chiropractic care, the chiropractor begins to bring her lower back segments back to normal, back to a neutral position. Now she has all that flow from that nervous input that was interrupted, and her hormones are working right. Her menstrual cycle is going down. Her pain begins to decrease, and she gets to see quality of life that she hadn't had in a long time.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's really cool. I didn't know that. And so, what is the difference between a chiropractor and a physical therapist?
A chiropractor does a lot of specific adjustments and movements. They're focused on getting the body to heal itself. We're focused on making the segmental adjustments or making the adjustments in the arms and legs and limbs and areas like that so that the body becomes functional, so that the movement becomes functional. Because once you have a segment that is not in place, what happens is you start experiencing pain, maybe not right away, but you begin to experience a dis-ease or a dysfunction in how the body is reacting. And so, with that being said, physical therapists focus on getting the patient back to functionability. And their adjustments aren't specific like chiropractic adjustment is.
Okay, gotcha. So, how would somebody know if they should go to a chiropractor versus a physical therapist?
It depends on what they're looking for their outcome. We have a board that's for physical therapy. And sometimes in my practice, I do physical therapy with my patients, but it's very basic. It's more along the lines of let's get your muscles moving, let's get the tissue to respond correctly. But a physical therapist, that's what their specialty is. They're like, if your foot isn't moving correctly, let's look at the whole chain of why your foot's not moving correctly. Let's do some exercises. Let's do some tissue work or use a different modality like laser to help enhance the movement and the healing of the tissue.
Okay, gotcha. Great. I think that's good for people to know. So, I would love to hear more about your practice because I was checking out your social media and saw that you collaborate with fitness studios and have yoga and things like that. Can you tell me about that?
I do. So I always feel like as a business person, you want to be able to offer your circle of influence the best options that they could have. So how I got to meet this young lady, she was like, "Oh, I'm new in town and I do yoga." And I was like, "Oh, wonderful. We have a conference room downstairs that you can use and we can do yoga on Friday nights." That works really well for my patients who are looking to get more flexible, who are looking to zen out and to get their body in shape. So I partnered with different people, different, not just yoga instructors, but different types of physical instructors. I have a guy who does a flexibility training and he does resistance training, and he's going to come and do some classes in my building as well. I sponsor those because I want people to have that opportunity. Now that COVID is, people are getting vaccinations and we're getting out more and we're seeing the end of hopefully being housebound. People want to get out and they want to exercise. They want to commune. It's an opportunity for people to meet other people. It's an opportunity for businesses like that to get their message out and their name out and their expertise out. There's only so much that I can do in my practice. I do that in my practice, but I also partner with different healthcare providers around my city. I have people that I refer to acupuncture. I have people that I refer to physical therapy and massage therapy and all of that because that builds a good community. I believe in what I call the handoff, and the handoff is when I know the massage therapist that's going to take care of you instead of you going to find one and you don't know if they're good or they're not. It's the same thing with exercise. I believe in the handoff. This young lady is really good at what she does. Come join us for yoga so that you can get the flexibility that you need, so that you can get what your body needs, not just chiropractic care. All that care tied together works really well for the patients and the people who are looking for a true wellness.
Awesome. I love that. I think that's so great. And
Thank you.
you're focusing on all the different aspects, and I'm sure your patients appreciate that a lot, that you can refer them to someone that you trust. I'm sure that eases their minds a lot.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to cultivate. Yes, thank you.
That's great. And when did you open your practice? How long have you been a chiropractor?
I've been a chiropractor since 2017. I tried to open a practice when I lived in Dallas. I didn't see the success there. And then I was inspired to move to Colorado Springs. So I've been in Colorado Springs since 2019. I'm going into my third year of being a chiropractor, and I absolutely love this freedom that I have to be able to help people. Before I was a chiropractor, I worked in the OR, I worked in surgery, and I helped people with surgical procedures. I did a lot of orthopedics
Wow.
and trauma and revisions and total joints and sports medicine. So I took all that experience that I had there and I applied it to what I was teaching myself along the way. And then when I came here, I was supposed to get hired by a chiropractor who didn't hire me. And my friends are
Oh,
like, bet on yourself. And I was like, but wait a minute. When you start a business, you have some anxiousness to it. There's a lot of responsibility. And so in 2019, in March, I bet on myself and I opened my practice.
That's amazing. That's a big jump. Yeah, that takes a lot of courage.
It is a big jump. I don't know if it was courage or stupidity, but it looks the same sometimes.
I agree. It certainly does. So I'm glad it worked out. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Very impressive. What made you want to make the switch from your previous career?
I was kind of forced into the switch. I call it a windfall. I was having some difficulties with work, and I had been having difficulties with work for a long time. Just the personality conflicts. As you become more of a maven in a work that you do, sometimes people view that as being arrogant. But if you learn anything for a long period of time, you do become an expert.
Mhm.
And sometimes people mistake that expertise as arrogant, and I mean, I there's so many things that contribute to that that I now know about that I didn't before. Having dyslexia, which I have, has a social
Mhm.
component, and I learned that through reading a Malcolm Gladwell book, and I was like, "What? That was like my whole entire life. How could that have happened?" But it did. And so people would say things like, you're OCD, you always want everything your own way. But in this book called David and Goliath, he explains that people who have dyslexia, they learn how to read on the right side of their brain. So they're learning logical things on the creative side. And so what they really need is a lot of process. And I needed that. And I didn't know that. And I didn't know how to explain that. So I was like an odd duck. It made me good, but it also got me in a lot of trouble. And so at the end of all of that, the last time I got released from working at a hospital, I had already applied to chiropractic school and I've been accepted. I was supposed to go to school to be a naturopath through being a nurse practitioner. The universe had a whole different message, said, no, we're going to go this way. And so I got into chiropractic school right away. And by the time I was released from that job, I had already had chiropractic school already aligned. I mean, everything was in alignment at that time.
Wow.
Yeah, my son graduated from high school. I got released from that job. I was already accepted in chiropractic school. So it was a very seamless transition.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, it sounds like it worked out really well and that the timing was just right.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So, as for your practice, what kind of techniques do you use with your patients?
That is a good question. I hear that question all the time. And at first, I didn't know how to answer it. But what I really hone in, what really makes people say that I'm excellent at what I do, is I really focus on how you got to where you are. Person will come in and say, I'm having headaches. I'm like, okay, you're having headaches. How long have you had them? When do you get them? When did they start? You know, what kind of medication are you on? Have you been in any car accidents? And I kind of comprise like Sherlock Holmes' way of determining what's wrong with you.
Okay.
So I've had a lot of experience. I mean, I've worked labor and delivery and I've worked in the OR for over 25 years. And I was studying herbs on my own and I was studying essential oils on my own. I had developed a soap product line in the late 90s. So I took all of that knowledge that I had, how to teach people, how to talk to people, learning about medicines and how they deplete the body of their natural salts and minerals and vitamins, and then I come up with a solution that is viable for my patient. The technique that I use are multiple techniques. I have scoliosis patients who need to be blocked. I do a little bit of SOT on them. I have patients who come in and they don't like the sound of the cracking. I use the activator. I have patients who come in and they don't really care just as long as that they're well. But sometimes their bodies are beat up. I see quite a few men in my practice because many of the chiropractors that they've been to before don't do the muscle work that I do on them. And they're like, wow, this is, you take your time. So I would not necessarily say that there's a technique that I follow, but I would say that there's a structure that I do follow. I feel like taking my time with my patients instead of gunning for numbers is more important.
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
And the
absolutely.
numbers will come. But people will be like, oh, that person's really good. She does that. This is what she specializes in. So the numbers will come. And I feel like once I know what's wrong with you, like the young lady who's been playing soccer for her whole entire life, she has headaches. Well, she was a goalie. So she hits the ball with her head. Okay.
Right.
So she has headaches. Okay, cool. Now what are we going to do about that? How are we going to begin fixing that? How are we going to begin working on that? And sometimes in my practice, I challenge the minds of my patients by doing cognitive work. And
Oh,
so
okay.
if you have a balance issue, it affects how you think. So if your brain is disconnected, meaning the right side's not working very well or the left side's not working very well, if you've had a stroke or if you've had some trauma, then that needs to be addressed because we can get the body right, but we need to get the mind and the body right. So we do balancing exercises and challenge the brain to work efficiently together. And so we do some of that work. And I believe that all of those components really give patients an outcome that they didn't expect chiropractors to do, or it gives them an outcome of reaching wellness in a way that they didn't think that they could.
That's great. Yeah, I really like that. That's great. That's interesting that you work on even the balancing and things like that. That's cool.
Thank you.
Say somebody, just your average person, what would you tell them? Like, what is their sign to call a chiropractor? How would they know to think, I need to go to a chiropractor?
I always tell people, don't look for pain. Most people think, oh, I'm not in pain. I don't need to go to a chiropractor. But you want to look for the decrease in mobility in an
Okay.
activity that you used to be able to do. So if you can't sleep well and you used to be able to sleep well, go see a chiropractor. If you can't run as far as you used to be able to, because and you're like, oh, people say, oh, well, you get old, and when you get old, this happens to you. Something happened to your body to prohibit you from being able to perform that activity. If your body is decreasing in the amount of activities that you want to do, or if you have to compensate carrying things like women do it all the time, like, oh, girl, my shoulder hurts. I'm gonna put my purse on my other side,
Right.
right? And you begin compensating for things that you normally do, that's a good indication you should probably go see a chiropractor. Oftentimes, like I had a young lady come today and she's like, I went to the doctor, podiatrist. He said, my feet are this kind of way. My feet really hurt. And I was like, okay. But they said I didn't need surgery. Good. Probably don't need that. Let's try adjusting your feet first. Let's try adjusting your ankles first and then see what your feet do. She was like, oh, like my feet feel so much better. Like, wow. I was like, probably just needed your foot adjustment, right?
Hmm.
Her feet were hurting. She went to a podiatrist, which I understand that thinking because most people don't think a chiropractor can adjust my feet. Yeah, wherever you have a joint, the chiropractor can adjust.
Okay.
So your feet, your elbows, your hands, your knees. I adjust a lot of knees. A lot of knee pain can cause you to have back pain. Hip pain can cause you to have back pain. Foot pain can cause you to have headaches.
Wow.
So we fix those things and then we begin to see where the real problems are. Because a lot of times the body sends different messages and different signals. And it may say, you have a really bad headache. And it's like, how did I get this headache? But if your feet hurt, you can get a headache from having painful feet.
Wow. Yeah, it's all connected, I guess, huh?
Yeah, it's all connected. I think those are things to think about. That is how you would determine, I need to go to a chiropractor. Some people are like, oh, I'm just going to go to an acupuncturist. They fix everything for me. It's all synergistic. I refer people to acupuncture. I have a guy right now. He's like, Dr. Penn, I'm supposed to have surgery in July. My shoulder's busted. It's been busted for a really long time. And I said, hey, before you go and get cut on, I want you to do two things for me. I want you to get a second opinion, just because I believe in one. And I want you to get a team of recovery before you actually go into surgery. You have a chiropractor, get a physical therapist, which he'll get through his insurance. Find an acupuncturist. He was like, I have one. I was like, get a massage therapist. He was like, okay. Because once you get that integrative care, you'll recover so much better. I don't discount surgery because we need it. I mean, I wouldn't have spent 25 years doing that. if I
Right.
didn't enjoy it. But you need chiropractic care to keep you in an alignment, keep you moving, physical therapy to make sure the right movements are being made, massage therapy to make sure that the muscles are working really well. Now, massage therapists know a lot about muscles and how to work and how to turn them on and how to turn them off. And acupuncture works really well with the body's energy and the chi and getting stagnation in our body gone. And so when you look at holistic care, that's what we're looking at, how to decrease the amount of medicines. And when do I choose a chiropractor versus a physical therapist versus a acupuncturist versus a massage therapist, or do I need all of them?
That's great. Yeah, that's great. That's really good for people to know. Yeah, thank you for that. I saw on your website that something you said is that you help people to understand their bodies. And I feel like at this time, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because we live these sedentary lifestyles, but I feel like a lot of people are very disconnected from their bodies. How do you help people to understand what's going on with their bodies?
Well, when people come in and they have an injury or they have symptomology or they're not getting a good night's sleep, once again, the investigation of why that exists or the root cause of that problem begins to allow me to introduce them back to themselves. Like, I had a lady come in today and she was like, I have psoriasis. I was diagnosed with lupus. I was like, well, do you have lupus? Well, no, I don't have lupus. And I was like, you have psoriasis, but you have some joint pain. And then I start thinking about all the things that I learned about in school. I was like, hey, has anybody ever said that you have scleroderma? And she was like, no, I don't even know what that is. Next time you go to your rheumatologist, go ask them about that because she had some symptomologies that looked like that. Now, she has an inconclusive conclusion about what she does have, but this might help her determine what she does have.
Mm.
And that's what I mean by introducing the person to who they are or what they have. Like I have a lady when she first came to me, she was like, I roll out of bed. I've been rolling out of bed for a whole year. I'm like, well, that's really bad, you know. She's like, my hips really hurt. I was like, okay, do you wear heels and do you wear, you know, what kind of bra size do you have? And do you sit a lot? And now we're asking a lot of questions. And I was like, play sports. Did you ever have an injury? And she was like, oh, I had an injury when I was in high school. I heard this pop, but nothing ever happened. But she was an athlete, so her body just kept going. That's how athletes are. But now she's older. And
Mhm.
I'm like, you still have that problem that you had when it happened. So now we have to retrain the body. And this is how we'll do it. And this is what our plan is. And this is why we're going to do it, how we're going to do it. And I need you to understand that if this is what we have to do to keep you well, then you always have to do it. So she was
Okay.
like, oh, okay. And a couple times she's like, I stopped doing what you said to do. And now my hips, they're not back to they're not back to factory standard. But I was like, you have to keep doing it. So now she understands that when she doesn't do certain activities that we talked about, her hips will feel some kind of way. And it's like, I'm introducing you to who you are today, not who you were then. And that happens time and time again. It's like, I never tell athletes, don't be athletes. I don't do that. I'm like, this is the best way to be an athlete. You're going to be an athlete until you decide that you don't want to be one anymore. So let me tell you how to train your body. This is the best way. Let me tell you how to look out for your body. Let me give you some exercises. Let's rebuild some of the muscles so that you can get the best performance. And that's how I reintroduce them to themselves. I had a guy come in and he said, I have compartmentalism syndrome. It's when the tissue begins to expand, but it exceeds what the skin can hold and a lack of oxygenation in the tissue. And I was like, well, when did this happen? He was like, it happened when I was in the military. I was like, oh, so did you go skiing and diving in the same day? Or, I'm going through this whole Rolodex of why you would have that. And he was like, no, none of that. I just got it from running. I was like, that's not synonymous with running. And he tells me, I was in a really bad car accident and then my body seized up. He said he passed out and he began to have, I think, a seizure and his body began to be septic.
Oh,
And I
wow.
was like, oh, that's how you got this problem. And he was
Wow.
like, I said, from a car accident that you had a long time ago, but the doctors didn't see anything wrong with you, so they didn't do anything about it. Then you went to basic training, and when you went to basic training, you started running on it. You started compounding an injury that you had before, but nobody knew how you got it. They just inferred it was from running. And
Right.
so I was like, "So these are the things that you'll need to do because you have this, and this is how you need to take care of it for the rest of your life." And he was like, "Okay, cool. Nobody's ever said those things to me." But I feel like what medicine overall in general, to include chiropractic and all of those quote unquote alternatives is missing is the care of the person. It's like after they're done doing treatments with you, do they still know how to care for themselves?
Right.
They got to get to that point. They have to get to that point. Some people will come to you because they go to their providers because their providers provide for them, or their providers invest in them, or their providers are keeping them from having surgery or keeping them from being decrepit, or their arthritis kicking in, or all those. Sometimes people just have chronic conditions. But some people, they want to get in, they want to figure out what's wrong with them, and they'll come back, circle back around later because they feel fine. If you don't tell them how to stay fine, then they'll be in this weird cycle of it works, it doesn't work, it works, it doesn't work. No, it does work, but now I need to educate you on how to keep it working.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So it sounds like you really meet people where they're at and you focus on the importance of like that aftercare and keeping up with that.
Yes, absolutely.
That's really good because I feel like a lot of places, when you go to the doctor, you go and they're like, "Oh, here you go. Like, have a good year. See you next year." And,
Correct.
that's it. So that's really important.
And that's what I love about chiropractic. That's what I actually love about being a chiropractor. It's like you see your persons regularly. Before they have problems, you can resolve them. I've seen my patients' labs and they're like, hey, I'm well within normal limits, but I'm like, the limit is 3.5 and you're at 3.7. That's a problem.
Right.
Your doctor may not say that because he's looking for red tags on your labs. I'm not looking for red tags on your labs. I'm looking to see if you're in the median. Now, if you see your doctor once a year and you're on medication, you're just getting these refills, you don't know if your body's being depleted of like magnesium, B12, vitamin D, zinc, trace minerals. And then when you start having headaches or you can't pee or you are having panic attacks and they want to put you on more medication, but they should be looking at the labs and saying, your potassium's low. Let's try putting you on potassium. Your vitamin D is low. Let's try putting you on vitamin D and restoring what the medicine depleted a person. But if you only go and you get the labs and they're like, oh, yeah, your labs are well within normal limits, we're good, then that patient will suffer later on. I had a guy tell me today, he was like, I can't drink enough water. I'm always dehydrated. And I was like, let's look at your labs. And he had some very low values, well within normal limits, but low values. I was like, let's talk about these low values and how if you don't have salts in your body that you'll just drink and drink and drink and you won't ever hydrate. And he was like, "Oh, when I played football, we used to have these salt tablets." I was like, "Exactly." So if your body doesn't have that and your body doesn't carry that, then you're gonna have dehydration. It doesn't matter how much water you drink. He was like, "Oh, okay." I love that when patients come, they ask us all these questions that their doctors don't normally ask them, and they get well. And even though it's disenfranchised in integrative medicine, meaning the two doctors aren't working together. The patient's getting the integrative care from the modern doctor and the alternative doctor.
Yeah, and when I spoke to Dr. Mack, the last chiropractor I interviewed, she was talking about that, how it's so important for all of the different doctors to connect and talk. And she was saying that that's kind of like her dream to like have a primary care doctor in her office, have a massage therapist, have,
Yes,
just for everybody to connect. And because I think when it's up to the patient, there's kind of like this spider web that you have to work to connect. So nobody's talking to each other, nobody's communicating, and it's like fragmented pieces of this whole person. Like you
right.
said, the person went to the podiatrist and, so you hop around looking for answers when it's really about the whole body and mind.
Well, I wrote an ebook. It's called Things That Doctors Don't Tell You That You Should Know About Chronic Pain. We talk about chronic pain, but chronic conditions, and it addresses that. One of the chapters is about wellness is a team sport. I talk about you have two teams. You have a professional team and then you have a personal team. And when you have a professional team, the patient writes down everything the doctors are saying. My chiropractor says that this is what's wrong with me. My rheumatoidologist says this is what's wrong with me and I need to be on this medication. This is my diagnosis. This is how long I've been on this medication. These are the supplements that I'm on. And this is what my heart doctor says. So the patient has a whole book that they fill out that they're keeping track so that when they go to any of their doctors, they're like, hey, here's my personal care physician. This is what they have me on. This is what they said. This is my blah, blah, blah. Before this millennium, early in the late 1800s and early 1900s and before then, we weren't going to doctors to be on something. We were going to doctors when we were sick.
Hmm.
And now when we go to doctors, we're inevitably going to be on something. 87% of people who are over 40 are on at least three medications.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot. I mean, look how many people are in America. I mean, that's something that should be looked at, I think. There's a lot of things that one can do naturally. In this ebook, I talk about food as a natural medicine. The second part of your team is your personal team. You need a personal team, somebody who's going to be like, hey, you could do it. Hey, I have these two girls in my practice and they're friends, and they both have chronic conditions. And one was born with one, and one got an acquired condition. And they were walking around calling themselves sick bitches. I was like, no, no, we are not going to do that because our minds will tell us, yes, we're sick and we
Mhm.
won't get better. And we can't figure out the root cause of why we can't get better. And it's like, what we tell our minds, our bodies will do.
Right.
Whatever we feed our minds, our body will follow. And so it's like we have to really tell ourselves, we could do this. You can go out there, you can run 2 miles, you can walk 2 miles, you can be active, you could eat this kind of food and your body's going to respond this kind of way. And you have to have a team, you have to understand hydration. There's just so many things that are very basic that the doctors don't tell us. That's kind of what's missing. It's like, what is the basics? Like when a person comes in and they say, I can't sleep. Well, how long have you been not sleeping? It's like, are you drinking enough water during the day? Because if you're dehydrated, it'll wake you up. And I'm like, oh, no, I don't drink enough water. Okay. Like, are you looking at video games and TV and all that until it's time for you to go to bed? Yeah, I am. Yeah, you're not going to go to bed because your brain hasn't turned off yet. Some simple solutions that I have found that people are like, nobody's ever said this to me. It's like, okay, well, you kind of need to know that.
Absolutely. Like you said, I mean, it definitely feels like there is a piece of wellness missing.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad that you are trying to fill it.
Thank you. Absolutely. All the time. This is great and rewarding work. It's awesome to see people. I have a patient who had memory problems for years. And she was like, I've gone to the doctor. They said I didn't have a stroke. They can't figure out what's wrong with me, but my memory's going. I was like, memory takes a long time to work on. If you're committed, we can help you. She and her husband have a business, and they were saying, she was like, I can't work Excel. I used to be so good at it. I can't figure out how to do it. And it took about a year. And she was like, I finally got on Excel and started helping my husband in the store.
Oh, wow.
That's so awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's really amazing. And healing takes time if you really want to be well.
Yes.
Wellness takes time. It's a marathon, and it's an everyday work. It's not like, oh, I did it this one time. I'm done. It's like, nope, you did it one time, do it 1,000 more.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the issue is that we're, living in this society, like you said, you go to the doctor, you get a pill that's all about these quick fixes, but really whole wellness is about the process. Like you said, the marathon, it takes a lot of time.
Takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
That's what I do in my practice. That's how I help my patients. I develop these ebooks that I think would help them through them seeing a different perspective of I didn't know how to keep up with myself. How do I keep up with myself? How do I measure my water? How do I measure what I eat? How do I measure my activity? How do I keep notes about what doctor that I'm going to and what are they saying and what are they putting on me and how does that medicine affect me? What is it depleting out of my body that I may need another medication for another medication for another medication? Oftentimes, side effects are just the depletion of something that's in our body. And so we have to figure what that looks like, before we want to put a person on another medication. And having responsibility for our own wellness. The mind, body, and spirit's only three parts of wellness. There are four more that I write about in a different ebook, but there are four more that I write about. And it's like, but if you don't get these three things right, you're going to keep tripping over that. So come to an alignment and an agreement within the body and get it working right and take the time to do it. Don't look for the quick fixes because when a person gets out of pain, their brain begins to open up to possibilities that they didn't have before. I think that becomes very important. I just recently started seeing a massage therapist, and he's a personal trainer as well. And he's like, your body is all jacked up. I was like, I know. I know. And healthcare providers, we're so horrible with taking care of ourselves. And it's not because we don't want to, it's because part of it is we don't make time. And the other part is that we're so busy helping other people, we're so busy giving out that we don't get back to ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he was saying, one reason why you keep injuring your leg is because of this. And I was like, oh, I never thought about that. But then the more I started thinking about it, I was like, oh, okay. And doing my own research, and I was like, oh, I do see that I used to do this activity that prevented that. And so once you know how to stay well, keep doing it.
Yeah, and I think that's important. I think a lot of people don't realize, like you said, you said a few times, like you pointed something out to a patient and they were like, oh, yeah, I think we don't realize it. But once somebody else points it out, then we're
Yes.
really able to see it. And that's the first step, right? Is becoming aware of
Yes.
what's wrong. And then you can really tackle the issue.
Yes, absolutely. And don't put it off. I've had people call me and say, I really need to come see you. I don't have the finances right now. I'll come see you next month. And I follow up with them. I'm like, so is your hip still hurting? And they're like, yeah, but okay. And so what I do know about surgery is the wear and tear of the body will get you a new limb.
Mm.
You can keep putting it off. You can keep putting that pain off. Or, I have a cousin who can't sleep, and she told me, I've been medicating myself with Benadryl. So she goes to sleep for 15 years. She don't.
Wow.
I'm like, dude, get off that. She didn't look at that as medication. I was like, yeah, it's over the counter medication. So
Hmm.
I mean, and when I pointed it out to her, she was like, "Oh my goodness, I had never even thought about that." I was like, "Yes, ma'am." And she's a healthcare provider, right?
Oh,
Bringing,
really?
bringing awareness to ourselves, and we don't oftentimes do that. And we do need somebody to look at our blind spots, whether we're healthcare professionals. We need somebody to check our mind. This is May. It's mental health and wellness month, and it's like, what do we do about that? I tell people all the time, there is a correlation between being in pain and being anxious. And so
Hmm.
I've seen patients, and you understand, I've seen
Yep.
patients in my practice who've been anxious. They're like, I'm on anxiety medicine. I was like, well, let's see how anxious you will be when we get your pain levels down. They're like, I'm going to go to my doctor and tell him, I don't need to be on this anxiety medicine after being treated for their pain. We can help our brains by really understanding what our body is going through and, not thinking that we're crazy. The young lady that I was like, I know what you have. She was born with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a ligament issue that she has. She was born with it for all of her life until she met me. She was like, I thought I was crazy because she would go and say, this hurts. And she kept saying that. So people thought she had Munchausen's. And I was like,
Oh.
oh, I was like, you're not a murmurer and complainer. You really have something. So when we could put people's mind at ease, then their mental health begins to increase. And now she can handle life's problems because what she's not tackling is pain. And so there's that direct correlation of how my brain works with how my pain works. And if we can rid the pain, we can rid of sleep problems and anxiety problems. People would consider mental health problems, but they're body physical problems first. When you receive a hug, don't you feel wonderful?
Mhm. Yeah.
Chiropractic works like that. When somebody touches you, the not just chiropractic, but just even getting a massage, the power of healing through hands, no matter how it is, somebody's touching you, they're stimulating your body in a way that medicine doesn't stimulate your body. It's activating the body's natural ability to heal itself because it's delivering serotonins and dopamine and decreasing pain receptors and increasing, healing and enzymes that go to that area. And all this is done because somebody touched you. We've missed that during COVID.
Mhm. Oh,
We've
yeah.
missed that with social distancing,
Oh,
you know.
definitely, especially the people that are living alone.
Yeah, especially them. Well, older people, they're like, oh my
Mhm.
goodness. I've had introverts come and say, I didn't think this was going to be a thing for me, but this has been really hard. And people think being an introvert means living without people, and it doesn't mean that at all.
Right. Yeah.
Introverts need people and extroverts need people. Extroverts really need people,
Mhm.
but introverts, they need people too, but just in a different way. And so, I mean, the power of healing is so important. When I was growing up, my dad would always hug us when we came home from school. And my mom hardly ever touched us when we were growing up.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, like two extremes. I needed that because I'm a sensory person. I was like, I need the hugging. I need the petting. I need the, oh, you're doing okay. I just need that physical touch.
Mhm.
Every person needs it, even if they think that they don't. Every person needs it. And that's how the body gets well. That's how we get herd immunity. So while we're understanding the immunizations and getting shots and all that, when my body is being touched in a appropriate way, through hugging or, attaboy and all that, the body begins to heal itself.
Mm.
And so that becomes so effective. And that's what people get when they get chiropractic care. They don't just get a click clack, oh, they crack my back, it feels so good. They get a whole level. There's a lots of levels to why chiropractic works or a massage therapist works or acupuncture works. Somebody's touching you. That's
Mhm.
sometimes why medicine doesn't work because nobody's touching you.
Oh, yeah, there's definitely a lot of components that I think we probably haven't even touched the surface. Well, thank you, that's amazing. I love all of that. I feel like I could talk to you forever, and you put me in the mood to go get a massage.
Go get one, girl. Yes, take care of yourself. Let somebody touch your body, heal your mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. This was amazing, and I want you to send me all of your ebooks. I wanna put them in the show notes so everybody can look at them.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
I'm so glad that I decided to interview Dr. Lauren today, as well as Dr. Mack, because I thought it was really cool to hear their different perspectives, but also how much similarities were between the two doctors and the interviews. So they both talk about wellness as a whole person. And they both spoke a lot about our eating habits, our sleeping habits, and how important those are. Drinking a lot of water, non caffeinated water, just straight up water. So I loved hearing that. And I think it really reinforces how important it is hearing it back to back from two different doctors. I thought that was really interesting and it really drives the point home. So if you take anything away from these two interviews with these two amazing women, I would say that focus on your body as the whole person, the whole body. They both talked about how our minds and bodies are connected. And I can personally attest to this because my mind and body are so connected to the point that if I hear somebody has lice, my whole head starts to itch. If I see somebody sneeze or cough, if somebody's near me and they're coughing, I instantly feel sick. Recently, I found out that a student in my school had COVID and I had interacted with him, and I instantly felt so sick and I had to lay down. I felt woozy, and it was just from hearing that he had COVID. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm dying. So, my mind and body are very, very connected. And I think that's the case for a lot of people. I don't know why that is the case for me. For some reason, I do not like it, but that's how it is. And how Dr. Lauren was saying that when your mind is affected, your body is affected. And when your body is affected, your mind is affected. I mean, it works. When you take care of one, the other starts to feel better. So I think that's a big takeaway from this interview with Dr. Lauren. I hope you enjoyed the interview and I hope you learned a lot from it. I know that I certainly did. I didn't even know that chiropractors worked with hormones at all. So I learned a lot from Dr. Lauren and I really appreciated her coming on and educating me and all of you. Like I said in the interview, I'm going to put all the links to Dr. Lauren's ebooks in the show notes. Definitely go and check those out. And I'm also putting all of her social media. So make sure you follow her for all those great wellness tips and tricks. Make sure you sign up for my email list. That link is also in the show notes. Make sure you get on there because every single week I send out an email and it's more of an in depth kind of wellness thing. I pick a topic for every week. So every week you're going to get new and great information about a wellness topic and a lot of what Dr. Lauren was talking about today. I hope you have a great, peaceful, and calm week, and I will talk to you next week with another amazing guest.